Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Let's watch.
The last couple of days have been like a lot. I was so eager to see you and really thought a lot this morning about, and like I almost went home this morning. Not anything against you.
Not anything against you. Not anything against you, but I was this close this morning to never wanting to see you ever again. Or at the very least deciding not to get engaged to you. Or, well, he was already engaged because they get engaged. Anyway, by implication, I think he's saying I was this close to break up with you and just moving on with my life. Not anything against you. Yeah, not anything against you. And that is expected. I can totally imagine that happens to a lot of people. I just don't imagine that they say it when they first see each other for the first time. So, but, so Jimmy has exhibited in the edit behavior that is along the lines of being very reserved and not expressing his feelings. And so now he's being open. So good. It's just maybe not the time for that.
This experiment has just drained me emotionally. And I say that in the best way possible because you kept me here. And like, I genuinely, you mean a lot to me. And it was a roller coaster for me. Like,
I don't know if we've seen a lot of the hallway scenes, and there are some notable, usually it's just run of the mill, lots of excitement and kissing and getting down on the knee, and the one-on-one interview, it was like, oh, this is amazing. I have butterflies, and then that's that. But there's some notable ones, like when JP, was it Taylor, did the kiss, and then when Irina was like, stop looking at me. And now this one, where he is, I don't know what to say about it. He's just being honest, and he's been through a lot. I just wonder why he's deciding that this is the time for that. And then it's tempting to draw conclusions, but I don't think you can. But it's tempting to draw conclusions that once he sees her, then he is thinking, I don't know if she looks so much like Megan Fox. I don't know.
How are you feeling now?
I'm happy. I'm happy.
Okay.
You okay?
I don't want to hear that.
What? I'm sorry. I feel like I can tell you anything.
You can.
That's good. She says, I don't want to hear that. And then he says, hey, I sorry, totally, but I thought I could tell you anything. So that's exhibiting him saying, I'm not saying anything to you. And that's kind of part of the problem, is that without much communication, then the listeners, the other people, are forced to read into everything. And for you people out there who, that sounds aggressive, we're all like this to some extent, but if you're at one end of the spectrum where you don't tend to express yourself or talk much, then everyone around you who is very, very interested, and their life depends on them understanding how you feel and what you think and what you want and what you need, then you're causing everyone around you to do a lot of labor trying to read into what you are communicating, because you're only communicating tiny bits of information. And there's a lot of gears turning in other people, like, well, he said that, so does that mean that? Well, I know I can't ask him because then he'll turtle up, and so I have to take a guess, and so I'll just, maybe if I passively, it's a lot of work and labor that you're foisting on other people just because you claim that you don't express yourself very much. And if people are frustrated with you, this is why. And it's up to you to work on it. If you want to not do that to other people, it's your fault. Now, if other people decide to get upset or abusive or something unfair to you, then that's their fault. But just claiming that, well, I'm just a reserved person, I just don't express myself very much, and I'm just okay with that. Well, then you might have to live with a life that is not very close to other people, then you're rarely getting your needs met regarding closeness and attachment and love and understanding and connection. So that's the trade-off. And it's hard, and there are, it's a long path out of it. It's easier said than done, but there is a path out of it. There's a path toward getting comfortable, being habituated, having new habits and patterns of expressing yourself. And then once you develop those habits, you don't have to think about it so much anymore. It just sort of happens. Maybe some of you have actually emerged into that. So for him, I think, I don't know, but for Chelsea, she might be thinking, well, if you're saying that, does that say something else? Because the fact that he just said that, well, the fact that he said it also just says something on some level, right? But like I said, I think it's totally understandable. It's not uncommon for people to feel that the day of their wedding, the morning of their wedding, and then live a happily married life for the rest of their life. It's just intense. And so I guess that is telling of his overall pattern that is being illuminated by his behavior regarding avoidance. And that's what people will do under stress. Avoidant attachment people will, when in doubt, run. And there'll be this massive urge to run, even though all of their heart and mind doesn't want to do that. Well, not all, but like you could have someone who has avoidant attachment, say, pretty significant dose, and they date someone and they get engaged and they get married. They've been together have kids with the person. There's minimal conflict. Everything's going great. And they've been together for 25 years and it's a very solid, secure relationship. And that avoidant person, whenever there's any kind of stress or distance or criticism, instantly in their head, they'll just be like, oh, okay, well, divorce, so I just got to pack my shit and go. It's just this automatic, just knee-jerk reaction, just like an itchy trigger finger, just like waiting to go. And that's what they have to become differentiated about and work on so that they don't shoot themselves in the foot, because they often do. Now, leaving a relationship sometimes is in the cards and the best thing for you. So I'm not saying not leaving is always the way to go, but you know what I'm saying? It's like this irrational go-to urge. And sometimes that'll manifest more behaviorally, just like pulling away or getting quiet or just getting a blank face like, yep, okay, yeah, I'm cool, even though they're not really.
I don't want to hear that you were about to go home. That would have sucked.
Not because of you. You're the reason why I'm here.
I'm so sweaty.
Me too.
And they're playing the ominous music, that low tone, and that makes me think that the editors are trying to tell us. Sometimes they're trying to tell us something. Are they trying to tell us something?
That's not what you want to hear. Maybe I wasn't what he was expecting. I don't want him to wake up one morning and just decide that he screwed up with his decision.
And I will say that for people with avoidant attachment, of which I don't know he suffers from, under stress, if you were to ask them to really explore for a while how they felt, they might erroneously conclude after really looking, and avoidant attached people have a harder time understanding their needs and emotions in general anyway. They also have a harder time remembering things because when they were young, it paid off for them to just not encode memories, because that would exclude memories that were difficult for them. It's just a general avoidance thing of emotion and memory and life, just like just moving forward, and a lot of pathological independence. But to give a stark example of this, I had a client once who he was avoidant attachment, and we explored that, and he definitely agreed, and he had a pretty quintessential version of it. And as a young child, he was neglected. He wasn't abused, but he had a single mom, and the mom was very distracted with a lot of work and stress and other kids, and she just didn't have much to go around. And so he developed avoidant attachment, and in a marriage that he was totally into, and there was conflict, but he would enter into this mindset that he really just wasn't in love with his wife anymore. And we would explore it. He'd come in to therapy and we would talk about it, and he had kids with her and they had a long life together, and he really wanted to make sure that divorce was actually the right move, right? And of course, I don't tell people if it's right or wrong. I just create a lot of environment to explore and maybe some suggestions of things to think about. And he thought about it for perhaps years, before he finally, and there was a lot of couple therapy in there as well, and before he decided that, I can't remember the last time that I wanted to be in this marriage. That kind of talk. Usually when you hear that from people, they are, they're just not into it anymore. They're no longer in love. And so he moved towards divorce. That took a long time. It was a lot of pain, a lot of crying, a lot of difficulty. And then he moved out and he felt great. And then 3 months later, he came into session and he said, I have made a horrible, horrible mistake. I don't know what I did. Why did I leave my wife? I love her. I want to be with her. And it wasn't just a matter of dealing with being single or alone or something. It was I worked with him for years. And then later on, we would conclude that he was always in love with his wife, but because of his avoidant attachment and because of the tension between him and his wife, he just slowly started to disassociate himself from his emotion and his love for her. That was still there. And it was so consistent over time that for months he could not identify with that feeling. And we explored it. And he wasn't actively trying to avoid those feelings, So then he fights his way back, and really had to apologize and managed to, after months and months, move back in and stop the divorce proceedings and work on their couple relationship. And I was there to make sure, and he was on board with, hey, let's make sure that you're being vulnerable, that you're speaking up, that you're really thinking about your feelings, that you're not letting things go down a certain road. When the avoidant tendencies start to kick in, let's look at it. And then we did that. Months later, years later, he comes in and he starts saying the same things. I don't think I'm in love. Maybe I should have stayed away from the marriage. I don't know. Or I just needed to try it another time. Again, months and months and months. And then eventually he's like, yeah, I don't know why, but there's no love down there. I'm in therapy, and and he had been through a lot of emotion, a lot of crying, a lot of vulnerability. And so the second time it seemed like, well, maybe this one is real because he has grown and healed a lot. And so, same thing, divorce, lots of trouble. Of course, his wife is like, what the fuck? And it's just, she had to really open up. It was really hard for her to open up to him the second time. Then it moves out. And this time it seems to stick longer. And months go by. He is moving on with his life, co-parenting, everything's great. Then all of a sudden, maybe a year later, boom, he is thinking, what did I do? I made a terrible mistake. I did it again. I went down that avoidant rabbit hole, and I'm now emerging and realizing that I always loved her. I always will love her. I need to go back. Well, it's like, well, I don't know how she's going to take this one. I didn't know how she's going to take the last one. Long story short, he fights, this is years and years and years, fights his way back into, begs, apologizes, couple therapy, vulnerability, full responsibility, lots of, avoidant attachment talk. And so I say all this because avoidant attachment is like, it's a thing. It's not something that you do consciously. It's not something that is easily overcome with self-awareness. It is tenacious, because when you are avoiding, you don't know you're avoiding because you're avoiding the mechanisms upon which you can evaluate if you're avoiding. So it's really hard to know if you're avoiding because, as one is moving away, you would say to someone, well, what do you want? And they'd say, well, I think I kind of want to move away, whether it's like this, because he's kind of doing it right now. I don't know if that's what he's doing, but it stands to reason, given that I think he was really into her. I mean, he seems genuine, So so what I would imagine happen is that there's stress of two things. One, of being criticized. So avoidant attached people, not all of them, but they can have a problem with criticism and blame. And that can also cause them to just avoid and run away from everybody. And he, of course, feels blamed by Jessica. And then he is also this morning before seeing her, having to deal with vulnerability and closeness. And for the avoidant person, they're terrified of rejection in the same way that preoccupied people are. And they deal with that by just cutting themselves off from even noticing those feelings and avoiding and shutting down. So he is about to be close to someone, and there's a lot of vulnerability on the line. You know, she could look at him and go, haha, gross, or she could not like his personality or whatever. And he won't necessarily talk about that in a vulnerable way. He doesn't even necessarily know that. I don't even know if any of this is true, but if we go with this line of thinking, and then he avoids. And so then when he sits down with her, he can't really feel the love or connection. And so there's a lot of intellectualism, which is another avoidant attached thing to do, is just to be subdued and to just think about things, when in all likelihood, I would imagine that a lot of heart and warmth and love and jubilation is underneath the barrier.
Yeah, I feel good now. I feel great. You okay?
I'm super happy.
And then, of course, what it does is it pushes people away, doesn't give them anything to hold on to, makes them feel rejected. It's this nefarious mechanism that the child, when they are being neglected, they're the ones going, love me, love me. Oh, no one's paying love me. Oh, no one's paying attention to me. No one loves me. Everyone is not there. Then the defense of, I will be intellectual. I don't have feelings. I will stop remembering things. I will run at the first. I don't need anybody. I'm very independent. And then, but deep down, there's still that kid. It's like, will someone love me? And then when anything happens of vulnerability or uncertainty or risk, and then the intellectualism kicks in and pushes everyone away. And then on the inside, there's this like, well, why is everyone rejecting me still? And it's just like, you developed this defense that's shooting you in the foot.
You told me 1,000 things. We sort of like hit on looks, but
Not for you.
She definitely lied to me on some how she looked. Chelsea told me she looked like Megan Fox.
I mean, he's laughing, so I don't know if he's just thinking that it's this side note, but he still very much loves her, as he said earlier, or if he's literally thinking that she lied, because she didn't lie. I actually rewatched that scene as I was editing a previous video, and what she said was something like, well, what some people say, and you know, don't get your hopes up, because I don't understand it, but some people have said that I look like Megan Fox or Machine Gun Kelly's wife or something like that. That was it. That was all we saw in the edit. I don't doubt her. Well, I don't have any reason to doubt her. People might have said that. They might have said that. There might have been 2 people that said that. There might have been people that said that because they were being nice. There might be 100 people that said that. There might have been people saying that 10 years ago. I don't know. But it's, I don't doubt her. And she might not have understood what expectation she was setting up. But this is why you probably shouldn't have these kind of conversations, right? Because then you can only disappoint, right? It could set things up going down a wrong. You could influence people. But so, yeah. So then you wonder for him, since he's highlighting this, because you would imagine that you might not remember everything you talked about. He definitely remembers this bit, And to say that she lied to me, I think he thinks that she was being very concrete about that and that he was banking on it, right? He was depending on that, or he was making his decision based on that. I don't know that, but, that wouldn't be strange for him to do that.
I'm so sweaty.
But, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I'm very attracted to her. I can work with that.
Okay. So on one hand, at first I'm thinking, he's like, well, it doesn't matter because I'm very attracted to her. It's like, oh, okay. And then he says, I can work. Well, maybe he's saying it sort of in the sarcastic or minimizing joke way. I can work with that. You know, so what is he saying? Is he saying, oh yeah, I can work with that? Or is he saying, yeah, I can work with that? Let's pay attention to his inflection.
Like Megan Fox.
I'm so sweaty.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I'm very attracted to her. I can work with that.
Okay. Why is this the one that's giving me the giggles? Okay. It sounds positive. It sounds positive.
I think you're gorgeous. I learned a lot about myself, but I learned that literally every conversation I had with you was the easiest thing I've ever done in my life, and it makes me forget other problems, I guess. I'm happy to see you.
Okay. He's salvaging the situation. That's good. Yeah. It's good. He was being honest. He's being honest. He's expressing himself. Still, I'm seeing dress shoes with no socks. I don't understand. I wear socks with sandals because I don't wash my sandals. Just what's wrong with socks? Are people trying to show off their ankles? Like, look at, oh, I can work with that.
Oh my God.
You like that?
I love it, and I love you, and I can't wait for this journey.
I don't care what you look like. I love you for who you are.
I don't care to. That was an edit. I think that he was prompted to say something like that. Like, if I'm going to take who knows, but I imagine that they had a tiny little interaction about, so here I am. What do you think about how like she might have asked, what do you think about what I look like? And he probably said, you're beautiful. My God. And then he said, I don't care. Just watch the edit.
And I love you, and I can't wait for this journey.
I don't care what you.
And they sneak in the audio while we can't see his mouth, which editors, stop it. Just knock it off. Because if you had a hard cut to him saying it, then I think the brain registers that as possibly a time jump. But when you have the audio over him, now maybe he did say it right there, but that would be bizarre. He's saying, I am so looking forward to, she's saying, I'm so looking forward to the journey. And then supposedly he says, I don't care what you look like. But it doesn't make any sense. It's possible, but I would put a shit ton of money that the editors are trying to manipulate us there. And that he might have actually said something very positive about her looks. We don't know what's in his head. I guess we'll find out either way. All right, well, let's adjourn there. And everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.